Hey everyone, I'm Todd Wayne along with Ronnie Heelan. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Paranormal Podcast. Coming up on this episode of Paranormal, we're talking to Stephanie Elgaydi. Now, Stephanie is the Assistant Regional Director of the Southeast USA and part of the management team for the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. Now, this was founded by Chris McKinnell, the grandson of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, Stephanie is also the co-founder of Peach State Paranormal, and she is the team lead for the Georgia branch of PERS, P-E-R-S, Paranormal Experience Research Society. So grab yourself a drink and a snack, turn the lights off on the way back, find yourself a nice comfy spot, and enjoy this episode of Paranormal. Stay with us, folks. All right, so Steph, thank you so much for joining us, and we're very excited to have you on and listening to your story. Yeah, we definitely want to hear your story and how you got started. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started in this crazy field?
Well, I know. I feel like, I'm a weirdo. I've always been a weirdo growing up. And I know it's going to sound cliche, but everybody in this field is in for a reason. Either they had experiences in their life that they couldn't explain, or, they lost somebody and things happened. But for me, it was, when I was younger, things would happen around me, or I would see things. My earliest experiences, I must have been around 2 or 3, where I would just see things. And, being that young, there's no really way to process it. So you think back as you get older on things that happened to you, and you're like, oh, that's weird. Why did it happen that way? And what did it mean? And as I got older, more things started to happen. And at first you kind of say, oh, that's a funny coincidence, or you try to make something up to explain it. But, even after I had my children, I'm married and, I'm raising babies, I still continued to see strange things. And I would say things like, oh, honey, did you see that? And my husband would go, no. And he would be like, what did you just see? I'd be like, well, a pair of feet just ran across the living room floor, just the feet, nothing else. Right. Yeah. And he would give me those looks like, okay, what are you on? Did you smoke something? And I got so many of those looks from like my kids and my husband that I just stopped verbalizing my experiences. And I just kept them to myself. But I was always one to watch the earlier paranormal shows. And that's when they were on like the Lifetime Network channel back then. Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, so that makes sense. And so things started to piece together for me in my 20s. But then, I got so busy with raising a family, and we lived overseas for a little bit. It wasn't until my 40s that things just kind of blew wide open. And this was during COVID, and I saw an advert to join a paranormal team, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I did that, and I just soaked everything up that I could on the exploring side, the investigating side. Yeah. And through that medium, I was able to connect and relate to other people on my team and find out, what am I? I have no idea what I was. And, in my family, these things are just not stuff you talk about. And if you do, it's mental illness. And I do have an aunt that she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia when I was younger. I experienced some of that with her and saw how she had to be committed to an asylum and where she was institutionalized and pretty much, in the system until she passed away. Yeah. And that I did not want that to be me. So I was very selective with who I spoke to and what I shared until I met this wonderful group of people and found out that, I wasn't nuts. I wasn't crazy. these things do happen. People do have the same experiences. And there are avenues for me to explore and develop some of the things that I was experiencing and doing. So, and then right after that, I had a very traumatic experience. I lost my brother. He was 20. He passed away in a motorcycle accident. And it just seemed like that was the floodgate that let everything in. And it's pretty much just taken off from there. And so from there, I have just learned so much. I'm still not done learning, by the way. You can't learn everything there is to learn in this field.
Right?
That's right.
Once you think you've answered a question, you have 10 more that you've got to see if you can explore and find answers to. Some we will never know the answers to, but we can gain experience through talking to others, experiencing things, helping people. And you'd be surprised how many people are out there that go through very similar experiences, who don't know what's happening, who can't explain it. And they look to us to help them get over it, get through it, and deal with it, and try to live somewhat normal lives. But I call myself a weirdo, but I'm actually proud of that fact. I like being weird. I like being odd.
That's right.
Yeah. It keeps me interesting. And I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like I don't belong in like mainstream society or mainstream groups.
Yes.
And I've tried to fit in and do normal things. I just feel so out of place and awkward.
I feel that.
Yeah, I always back to people that I can relate to, and it's the paranormal field. That's where I feel most comfortable at. People usually are more forgiving with experiences that you share. They don't give you those looks. Unless you've got something like so just out there that is terrifying. I mean, and it's not judging. They're not judging you at all. They're just in awe of your experience. So that's pretty much what led me here today. After I joined that team, I was like a sponge. I soaked everything up. Books, academic papers, if there are some. There's a few. There's not very many. I've read them, asking questions, getting into groups, asking people what this means. Have they had similar experiences? And from there, I got the opportunity to join the Warren Legacy Foundation.
Nice.
And that is a foundation. It started with Lorraine Warren and her grandson, Chris McKinnell, in 2014, where they decided to do something aside from what Lorraine was doing with Nesper. Because, her and Ed started Nesper back in the day.
Yes.
And it was my understanding that they were just becoming, so overwhelmed with people that needed help. And their grandson, Chris, wanted to jump in and help. So they started the foundation. And ever since then, it's just people who have a need. They don't know what's going on. They need help talking things through, figuring out what they can do to make the situation better. Because sometimes a lot of it's a lifestyle change that has to happen. Or, a lot of the times it's I played with a Ouija board or, I did something I wasn't supposed to. And we come in and we kind of educate them on what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And now here's what we have to do to kind of make things go back to the way they were before you tried to communicate with Susie on the Ouija board.
So how do you tell somebody that they were on a Ouija board and now they have stuff going on?
Well, first, we never judge them. I played with a Ouija board when I was a teenager. Things happened after that, and I learned not to do it again because I did not know how to use it properly. There are things that you can do to kind of make sure that you're not allowing something sinister or malevolent in. So we always ask them, okay, well, what were your intentions behind using the Ouija board? Because in my belief, I know a lot of other people's belief, it's not the actual board that's bad. It's your intention, what you were trying to achieve when you use the board. A lot of the times it's, I wanted to reach out to a family member. I wanted to ask my family member questions and see if they're okay. And we're like, okay, yeah. And so what did you do? Did you just flip open the board? You just started asking questions, and they say, yeah, I just opened the board. I asked a question and something came through and told me I was going to die. We're like, well, yeah, that's not pleasant.
Right.
Yeah, that's not pleasant. So we're going to try to fix that. And a lot of the times it's not something that was malevolent or demonic at all. It was just something coming through that shouldn't have. And now we're going to make it go away. A lot of the times we don't have to do an on-site investigation. We have so many talented and experienced people that we guide our clients on what to do. First of all, they gotta do something about the board. If you want to know what your family members are feeling on the other side, if you want to talk to them or communicate with them, and you don't have gifts, so to speak, or you don't have access to a person who can do a reading for you, we always try to say, you know what, you don't need to use a board. You can just do other things and look for signs that way. A lot of the times it's empowering people, taking ownership back of their space. Obviously, we never want people to hear bad things through a spirit box or a Ouija board, but it's not permanent. There are things that you can do to kind of drive that away, make your space positive and harmonious again. And hopefully they learn their lesson and don't do it again. Sometimes they do. Sometimes people don't listen. They're curious. So it takes a lot of education, talking people through the proper ways of opening up a spirit communication session,
yes,
if that's what they want to do.
Exactly.
And definitely with somebody who's more experienced than they are.
Sure. And, and that's a good thing to know, that now demonic and evil things, it's very rare for them to come through. Correct?
Well, demonic. Yeah. I don't think, now I've done quite a few spirit box sessions. I don't think I've ever had a demonic presence come through on a spirit box session. Not so nice human spirits, yes. There's usually about one or two almost every single time. And, we always like to open our spirit sessions with, we're only here to communicate with the highest and purest vibrating energies. If that is not you, go away. We don't want to talk to you. But sometimes one will pop in and say, F you, or they'll call you a C word, or the B word. I mean, some of them are just really quite nasty, and we just pretty much tell them, we don't want to talk to you. Go away. And if we have to, we end the session. And there's a proper way to end the session as well, too. We're done talking to you. You cannot come through anymore. You cannot follow us. This is it. We're breaking down, and we count backwards and end the session from there. And that's usually very effective. I don't think we've had any adverse experiences,
right,
by not by following that.
And what's the name of your group?
Well, I'm part of several. The big one, Ed and Lorraine Warren Legacy Foundation. We are global, so we take clients on worldwide where we can. And then I'm co-founder of Peach State Paranormal with my soul sisters, Kelly Ladd and Michelle Barker.
Awesome.
And then
so are you down in Georgia?
Yes, we're down in Georgia.
That's where I'm from, is Georgia. Hell yeah.
No way.
Yeah,
that's
Savannah.
Cool. Oh, so you're from the cool city. I'm up north. I'm northwest Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
It's very hard to find haunted places up here.
Yeah, Savannah's got it all over the place.
Yeah, they do. That's pretty cool. And then all three of us are also part of Paranormal Existence Research Society out of Florida, PERS, with Bill Slevin.
Yes. Yes.
So we're also a part of his group too. We take care of the Georgia up north. We can do Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, and probably parts of Florida if we wanted to. But Bill sends all the cases in Georgia our way.
Cool.
Yeah, nice. Now, the Warren Foundation they have people in different states too, right? Like
Yes,
if somebody
yeah.
would reach out to you guys from, I don't know, Wyoming, would you have like an affiliate that's like Wyoming based or close to? How does it work?
Yeah, see, all of anybody that comes to us for help, we always ask them where they live and what's going on. And the United States is broken up into regions. So we have Northeast, Southeast, Midwest. We have the West Coast and Southern.
Yes.
So if we got somebody in Wyoming that sent in an application, we would go through and review their application. And we have members in the foundation that are either in close proximity or in that state that we would pass the case along to. And they would work that case and help that client out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, and we're global. We have people in Spain, South America, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Asia.
How does one join a foundation? Like if we wanted to join?
Yeah. If you wanted to join, you can go to our website and fill out an application to become a member. Mm-hmm. We have really kind of made our guidelines and requirements for joining a little bit more strict in the last couple of months. Only because we get a lot of inexperienced people who have seen shows like Ghost Adventures or the younger YouTube generation out there exploring different places. And they want to do it because they've seen it on TV without any real experience.
Yes.
We ask that people have at least a really good foundation for residential investigations. Some of them come to us with like very nice credentials. We take people who are counselors, substance abuse counselors. We've got people who are psychologists, therapists. We need those people as well. So even if you don't have a background in paranormal or investigation, if you've got some expertise that helps us assess clients, then we will take you in and we will train you up a little bit.
Awesome.
Because those expertise, those professions are always very helpful to us. Because sometimes a lot of the problems that come to us are mixed with some mental illness or some mental issues that are going on, as well as paranormal. Sometimes they go hand in hand and we have to assess both and try to help both.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask this question about evidence. Okay, so if you have somebody that's working that side of the state, how does the Warren Foundation, how do they pick that apart, the evidence?
Yeah, a lot of times our clients will send us evidence, and it's kind of twofold. We will get a lot of orb photos, a lot of video security camera, things that we can explain through our expertise and our experience as, things like motion blur or sun flares or like a light glare. A lot of the times that when they send us evidence, they don't like us because we really scrutinize that evidence. And, we always get backlash from it.
That's our job, though. It's our jobs to...
It is our, I know, right?
to do that.
So we probably see, I don't know, anywhere between, I would say 90% of the evidence that comes to us is either of orb or like a motion blur, or a lot of times people will use their smartphones to take photographs that, or tablets, because tablets do these too, that have this smart technology in them. And they'll snap a photograph and like, oh my gosh, my sister's head is missing. What happened with that? And that's actually an anomaly that can be explained because of the type of smart software in your tablet and your smartphones. We've got moving pictures now. And sometimes the software in those phones gets wonky and it produces a photo that it otherwise wouldn't have produced, but something went wrong, right? And a lot of times when we explain that to people, that it to us, it doesn't look like a paranormal event, but they are just dead set. Like, oh, but no, but my device. And I'm not picking on anybody who uses this device, but a K2 meter, it's good if you are out there having fun, if you're at a pay to play and you're just not really investigating. But we actually had somebody that sent us SLS. It was like a still photo from the SLS, and they had captured an anomaly on a couch. And we're like, oh, the SLS is very much experimental. It should never be used in a residential investigation. And they said, oh, but it's okay because my K2 reacted at the same time. And while I'm not knocking people who use the K2, it is not a device that I would recommend if you were actually trying to capture a numerical value for an electromagnetic frequency in a location, especially for a residential client. We want something that we can look at and say, well, at this time we had a reading of 0.3 or any type of numerical value. We cannot explain a color light range as well as we can with something with a numerical value. We get a lot of backlash for things like that. If we are going to be out there and we're trying to capture real data, real scientific data to explain away the natural things, we need to use proper instruments. A lot of times, if you come to me and you say, I caught this photo and there were 3 people in the room and one of them had an experience, they had a feeling or they were touched, that's something different, because a human is like the biggest antenna, right? We feel sensations all over. And there is evidence that, when something happens, somebody will get touched. I don't know if you guys have heard of Ross Allison. He's got something called Parasense on Tubi. And it's called the Naked Experiments. And it is called that because actually all of the people that participate in the experiment, they derobe their clothes. They are completely naked. And they do that so that they can eliminate the human interference and also the interference of clothes. And they've actually captured when the investigator was sitting there and they said, oh, something just touched me. One, they've got instruments that pick up movement. So they've got that. And then sometimes they're left with bruises. And it's kind of hard to debunk a bruise when you weren't wearing any clothing. And you've got your scientific device also capturing data at the same time.
Yeah. That's
pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
A lot of times people don't like us when we come back and we say, oh, it looks like it's just dust, or it could be, moisture. We try to stay back from things like that until they give us something more substantial.
Well, sure.
Even then, we're kind of on the fence of deeming something paranormal just based on photographic evidence of like an orb or something. We're not saying that we don't believe in orbs. Orbs truly exist, but it's very, very rare that what we have been sent is a true spirit orb.
Right. And I mean, I get it. I mean, Ronnie and I, we've been doing this for a long time. Me for 20 some years. So the 99% of anything that's in a photo is going to be environmental contamination.
Most definitely, especially with photography. I mean, there's so many variables there that are so unknown just by looking at a photograph. And it's less controlled. It's less controlled as if I went to a room and I had cameras in 4 corners. And so I could see where I was at all times, and I could see my mouth and hear if I was talking. It's just with a photograph, it makes it very, very difficult. So we try to use other means, other data. And even then, our approach to our clients is education and empowerment.
Yes.
I think a lot of our cases do not require on-site investigations. We actually had one client, we did the interview with him, and he actually said, okay, now what's next? Do you show up with your cameras and you start running down my house, capturing stuff? And we were like, no, not yet. Of course, it doesn't always work that way. But with that particular client, we were able to help him without having to go to his house. It does kind of take the fun out of it, because a lot of times people get into the paranormal so they can investigate and collect data. But a lot of the times it's something that's not scary or bad, that it's, just clearing out the energy in your home and making it more positive, opening up the windows and letting some sunlight in and clearing out all that dust and stuff like that. In my experience in the last 2 years with the foundation, most of the cases have been just creating more harmony in a home, in a person's life, changing their mindset, getting them away from the occult, if that's what they're into, especially if it's part of the occult that involves more darker things like dark magic and hexes and cursing people. So we tell them, if you're really going to do that, then you're kind of putting yourself in that environment to have negative things happen to you, because anything that you send out is definitely going to come back on you.
Yep.
So if that's what they're into and they're not willing to change that, then we can't help people like that. And it's impossible to think that we're going to help everybody. Some people just don't want to be helped.
Right. And a lot of it is, they see something on TV and they're like, oh, well, I'm going to call somebody in because I hear this scratching on the wall, and, they don't want to hear that it could be something normal. And, like we talk many a time to different people that, I have investigated places where they're claiming demonic and scratching on the walls. And I did hear scratching on the walls until I found out it was a mouse. So
yeah,
it's, what I mean? And when you tell them, oh, wait, here, this is what it is, they do not want to believe you. You got to have, cameras everywhere so that they can see that that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And even, and that's just people. There are other investigators in our field that feel the same way as well, that it doesn't matter what you tell them. And you should always have a third party view your evidence, only because, for example, I'm a spiritual person. I believe there are things out there through my experiences. And if I think I've gathered something and I interpret it a certain way, I'm a little bit biased because of my beliefs and my experiences. So it's always good to have somebody else, a third party, take a look at it. And like if it's an EVP, I would say, hey, listen to this. What do you think it says? Because I think I'm not going to tell that person what I think it says, but I want to know if they are picking up the same thing that I'm hearing, or if I've got an anomaly on a video and I think it might be something, but I'm not sure, I will definitely always pass it off to somebody else and have them look at it and say, hey, what do you think this is?
Yeah.
That's right.
A lot of the times what I think it was, like, I don't know, sometimes I stay up till like 2-3 in the morning looking at video or listening to audio, and you write down your notes and you're putting everything down on paper, and I'll go back the next day and listen to it again. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know what I was hearing last night. It's completely different. I must have really been not sleepy. Even there. Right? Yeah. I mean, we're human. Sometimes we're going to make mistakes, and it happens to the best of us. And I'll send it off. I remember, this is funny, sometimes those night vision cameras mess with you. Not everything shows up like it would in normal natural light. And I was reviewing one night and I was watching a window, like the camera was pointing to a window, and it's right at twilight. So it's not quite daylight anymore, but it's also not dark enough to get a good visual on this night vision camera. And I'm seeing something move across the screen. It's a window, so something was outside the window moving across. And I'm like, oh my God, what is that moving across? I was like, my perception was that it looked like something crawling, and it was so slow. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is good. This is good. What is this? And I reviewed it and just replayed it and looked at it. And then I was like, I just can't figure out what this is. So I emailed it to somebody. I was like, what is that? Can you see that? And then I quickly retracted it. Like as soon as I sent it, it dawned on me. I was like, oh, it's a car. It's just a slow moving car. It must have been delivering pizza and looking for, the address, who knows. But taking a moment and just stepping back and just taking a break and taking your eyes helps tremendously. And then I felt so dumb. I was like, I can't believe I looked at that and thought it was something else. How could I have not known that it was a car?
But that's good because you're using your brain. You know what I mean? You didn't stick with, wow, this is some kind of anomaly. You continued to figure out what it was.
Yeah, I think, and I think just as you gain more experience and you just do more and more, you get better and better. And I remember watching, and I can't believe I bragged about this. I watched a video that somebody had put out online that said it was a spirit orb. And I mean, it looked so convincing. And this was like 5 years back. And I remember 5 years ago thinking, this is amazing. Like, oh my gosh, that orb it looks like wings. And it's moving so slow. And I was convinced 5 years ago that this was a real orb, that somebody had captured this orb. And I remember talking to Bill. It was Bill. And I said, hey, Bill, have you ever seen this video? It's amazing. This thing looked like an angel. And so we pulled it up and we're watching it together. And the person that I was 5 years ago is not the same person I am today. And the person I am today was watching that video at the same time, with Bill. And I'm like, I'm so embarrassed I ever told you about this video, Bill. I was like, I cannot believe that and looking at it today, it can be explained as a spider, moving across the lens and you can see the spider web.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm actually embarrassed I ever told you about this, Bill.
Girl, I have a kitty cam outside, and when it gets dark, it goes from color to black and white. And it looked, I swear, one night, this little thing flew by, and it looked just like a fairy. Looked just like a fairy. I was like, oh my God, I captured a fairy. But, my logical person is like, no, it's just some kind of bug, a moth or something. But and then I went and saw it again the other night. Somehow I was going through some old pictures and I saw it and I was like, oh my God, there's my fairy thing. But yeah, if I can find it, I'll send it to you because it looks just like a damn fairy.
Oh, it does. And they do. Somebody shared one a couple of weeks ago. I'm in these groups because I'm like, I like to help people. I like to help explain things to them. And a lot of times in explaining, you just get yelled at. But there was one. So I try not to comment too much. But there was one. She was like, look at this fairy. You can see the wings and the legs. And I was like, I'm sorry, but it's got antennae. You can see it's a wasp. And they're like, yeah, but it glows and it's transparent. You can see through it. And, we have so much education out there now that explains why bugs and insects look that way on those security cameras. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, but then you see the same person take that same footage and post it in a different group, hoping for somebody to say, oh my gosh, yes. There was one comment on the one that I commented on, and one person goes, oh, it's got hooves. It's got hooves, and now I feel sick to my stomach. And I was like, oh my God. Whoa, where do you get that from?
Well, yeah, because these people that will share something in a group, if they don't get because they already know what they want to hear. And if they don't get that, then they're going to lash out and they're going to block people. And, it's a shame, but they're so set that is what they want to see, that anybody that says anything is wrong.
Yeah. Or crickets.
Yes.
You could say, well, it's really this, blah, 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 and nothing.
Yes.
I think it makes our job a little bit more harder now because we have AI. And so the trends that I'm seeing lately, especially among these groups, are AI generated images that people are trying to pass off as a paranormal anomaly. And that is very difficult. One, if you're sharing it on social media, we don't have access to the metadata on that image.
Exactly.
It gets taken off the second you share it on social media. And then with artificial intelligence, those images can be so unique. You can try to like a reverse image on it and you won't be able to find it anywhere.
Exactly.
Because it's never been shared, created, put online ever. And so that makes it quite difficult for us. So when people send us photographs and they say, hey, can you look at my orb? We can give them what we honestly feel like it is. But you can ask Bill. I don't know if you've talked to Bill yet. He's great if you haven't had him on your show. He gets more hate comments than anybody. He really does try to educate the public out there on the natural things that that orb could be. And he gets trashed. He gets trashed.
Yes, but that's the thing that we need, though. People need to realize what is a real orb. It's self-illuminating. You know what I mean? You don't need – it can be pitch black, and you don't need a flash. You're going to pick it up. You're going to see it with your own eyes.
Also, too, and I did have one person disagree with me on this. I've seen one true orb in my entire life, and it was 20 years ago. And it was so quick. It was so big, so bright. I actually thought it was going to hit me in the head. I remember ducking. And this is the time where we didn't have smartphones. I think I still had an analog phone back then. It was so quick. I was not thinking, grab my phone and take a photograph, or grab my camera and take a photograph. For me, it was so quick, and I was trying to process what I had just seen and what I had just experienced, that I was like, I can't believe what did I just see? What was that? What did that happen? And you're like, well, was I imagining things? It was just so many things going through my head. I know from my experience that the last thing that was ever on my mind was I should have taken a picture.
Right.
Yeah. And I had once, I happened to just share that, and somebody in the field was like, absolutely not. I always have a camera nearby and I'm always going to grab it. My first instinct is to always grab a camera. And I'm like, well, I don't have that attention span. I've got like the attention span of a frog. So that's definitely not what I would be thinking. But some people do.
If it was moving quick, like you said, you could take a picture, and of course, you know, the shutter speed is not going to match with the camera because it's moving, and it could just end up being like a blob of nothing. So, but being able to see it was good.
Experience. Yeah. And I have heard people tell their story and say how they did move slower where they could follow it. You know, if it left the room, they could follow it out the room. But in my experience, for me, it was very quick. I thought it was going to hit me upside the head. I remember ducking. Would I have loved to capture that on? Most definitely. Most definitely. Because then I'd have something to show my family. Like, see, I'm not nuts.
Right.
I'm not nuts.
But see, it's just like the whole perception of a dust orb, and you see it a lot on TV. You'll see they'll pan in close and they'll say, look, you can see this spirit orb going right through this person at the exact same time this sound is. And I'm like, oh, good Lord.
I know. And I've been that person. I was that person. I remember we did a bank. It used to be a bank. It was one of the very first banks down in LaGrange, Georgia, and it's now a museum. And I remember watching the footage from our investigation there. And sure enough, a white thing flew across the screen. And at the same time, there was like a vroom sound. Like, vroom. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I sent it to the team lead, and he was like, that's a bug. I was like, are you sure though? It made a noise. And I was just convinced. And no, it's a bug. So I have to say, I love Ghost Adventures, because they were synonymous for doing those orb recap videos. You know, they'd say, oh, look, this orb took a 90-degree turn, and it went through Aaron and out that way. And I remember back in the day when it first came out, I didn't start watching it till 2011. I think it had been out since 2008. I remember just watching and just being, and I'm like, oh my gosh, did you see that? And now I'm like, oh, those things are so funny. I mean, for the entertainment value, I love those shows. They make me laugh. I mean, how many times can you send Aaron to the basement by himself and lock him down there, and he will have the same shocked expression every single time?
Yeah. And that's on a lot of the shows, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's hilarious.
That thing, like the part of the orb, it just makes me funny because some people will be like, look, it's moving on its, like it has a mission. And I was like, any speck of dust is going to have the slightest movement of air is going to send it like it's on a mission. So,
oh yeah. And air that we don't even see. I mean, that's right. I mean, you're talking about electronically charged particles going through the air, and and just walking creates friction, and all those dust particles that create friction, create an electronically charged area environment for them to float this way and that way and be pulled in all different directions. But people don't want to hear that. I remember I felt bad. I was like, I tried to explain it to this one woman. I could tell she was like, I haven't slept. I'm sorry. I was like, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be mean to you. I was just trying to explain to you that dust doesn't just come out and fall to the ground. It will glide through the air because it's charged. And I mean, she came at me really good. And I felt bad. I was like, you need to go take a nap.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was just trying to explain to you.
and they'll start saying, my house is clean. I don't have any dust. No, you have dust. People just don't get it. Hey, I sent myself on a wild goose chase once with a shadow figure that was myself. And I was so determined that was from some. I swear I was standing there. I was like a statue, and this thing moved, and I'm like, oh my God, I got the Holy Grail right here. And did that.
I've done that before.
Yes. And you do, and then you feel really dumb about it, but you're like, oh my God. And people would be looking at it going, Todd, no, wait a minute. If you look at just this moment, how you are moving just a little bit, and you look at that, and I'm like, that's not true.
Lies, all lies.
Yes. I wanted it to be a shadow person so bad.
I think that we all come from a place where we want to be able to say that, oh, look what I captured. Look at this great thing. We all know there's something out there. We all know it. Everybody feels it. We've had experiences. We all just want to have that one piece of something that we can not be able to explain.
Right.
And I haven't caught one yet.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's going to be.
Yeah, like EVPs are different. EVPs are easier to catch. But even then, I was talking to Mr. Kenny Biddle. You had him on your show last month.
Yes.
I'm always trying to make sure that I maintain the integrity of my investigation. So I reached out to him, and he actually gave me a piece of advice that I hadn't even thought about. And it was, air vents. Sound will travel through air vents.
Yes.
So now I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Now I got to figure out a way to kind of isolate that part from interfering into, my audio evidence that I've captured. Now I got to go back and be like, could that have been something that traveled through an air vent?
Exactly.
It's just, luckily, Peach State Paranormal, we went and investigated a house, that did not even have central air. Like, it was one of these really, really old houses from the 1800s that, was kind of renovated so that people could walk inside without dying, but it still has no central air or plumbing.
Wow.
So that made me really happy. Yeah. When he told me that, I was like, oh, but this latest place that I was into, they don't have plumbing or central air.
But you can still, if you talk normally, sometimes you can hear it right through the wall.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are some places, sometimes you can explain, like if we were all outside and we left our cameras inside running and we know for a fact that no one was inside and you captured an EVP, that's different.
Yes.
But if you've got like Joe up here in the second level bedroom, and then you've got somebody down in the basement and they're both talking and trying to capture evidence, then it's pretty possible that their voices, their sound waves can travel through the ventilation system and be picked up either on an audio device or a camera as an EVP.
Yes. And that's what's hard about like paranormal investigators that have more than like 4 people in their group. It's like now it's starting to become a crapshoot because
I know.
you need to know exactly where your people are at all time. So I always am one for keep your group small. Even if you have to have a couple of people just wait outside, let 2 go in, and then have another 2 go in after. There has to be some kind of a control.
You're right. You're right on that. And there's 3. It's just me, Michelle, and Kelly for the local Georgia team. So it's just us. And then we usually have 2 people come and help us. And they're usually taking photographs or they're documenting what we're doing at the time. But and we usually try to have a camera in every single room that we're going to be in. And if it's one large room, like this last home that we did, it was just one giant room on the first level and then 2 rooms upstairs. So we had 4 cameras in each of the 4 corners in the first level to capture everything. Because, there's a staircase and there's a table. So if we're over here and somebody hears something, we can easily go to the other cameras and see who was talking, if somebody was talking, and try to at least minimize the amount of interference and then debunk. We always try to debunk first. And a lot of the times we debunk ourselves.
Yes.
Yep.
It's annoying, honestly, but it's something that we have to do to maintain our integrity. I think it only makes you more credible when you can debunk yourself.
That's right. And,
I really do.
And that's a good way of looking at things because there's not enough debunking of things. Now it's become, now every little sound is paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. It's like you're scratching. I mean, that's one we get that a lot. Oh, I hear scratching and my dog was growling. I'm like, well, one, there are squirrels, mice, critters. They always find a way into your attic or in your walls.
Yes.
It's just, you're never going to find a home that is devoid of some type of little critter. And your dog is probably growling because they can hear it. They can smell it. Yep. And if they're staring at the wall, maybe the mouse is in that particular part of the wall. That's not something they like to hear either. We always suggest that they, have somebody come in and try to inspect to see if they got possums living in their attic. And this is funny. And so for me, I'm always worried that Steph is going to follow me home. So I'm hyper-focused around my home. So if one morning it was like bright and early, and I remember hearing like a thud up in my attic. It sounded like my attic. And everybody had gone to work and gone to school at that point. So it was just me and the toddler. And I literally straight up and I was like, oh my God, what was that? And then it happened again. And then you could hear like scurrying. And I was like, oh my God, it's just like the movies, right? Just like the movies where they hear the stuff. Okay. So I'm like, I better not have brought nothing home. I'll get blamed for it, which I always do. Like if something happens, I always get blamed for it. Like, what did you bring home? I live in a rural area. It's in a subdivision, but it's still quite rural away from the city. And I have these 2 little possums. Instead of just like climbing out of the trees, they literally drop onto my roof every morning to get down out of the trees. They just plop themselves down on my roof. And then I can hear them like walking. I can hear their claws as they go across the roof to get down. I was like, you got to be joking.
Aww.
You got to be joking. It was possums, y'all. Possums.
Yep.
So and
that's perfect. I mean, that's perfect because I think that as you said, you're hearing it, and you're hearing the scratching, the shuffling, or however you just describe that. And yes, you're going to think that there's your house has now got a demon. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
a demon in the
that's one of the
attic.
common things.
Yes, there's a demon in the attic, and one on top of your roof.
I know. Right? We had one client we were talking to one night, and she lives in Florida. And she was like, yeah, I heard growling outside, and I went to my porch. I was like, excuse me, hold up, ma'am, you live in Florida. Everything tries to eat you in Florida. I was like, I would never go out at night to try and inspect what was growling in your yard. I was like, you could have an alligator out there. Yep. I mean, you don't want to go out there to, look for this demon and not come home. And a lot of times it's funny. I'm making it comical because when I look back on it, I'm like, how you live near a swamp, you're in Florida, you hear growling. Right. My first thought is not to run outside and see what it is. Right. Especially with no lights, no flashlight or nothing. I have infrared on my cameras, so I would probably peek out and see if I could see something on my night vision.
Yes.
That would be it. Yeah. But when you live in an area like that and you hear noises and it's growling, it's an animal. It's not going to be a demon. Yeah.
It's like that in South Georgia too,
gator.
It's probably got scales and it's probably about 8 foot long. So you stay away from the swamp.
Dinner. I was like, please don't do that. Please don't go out there at night. You might come back minus an arm.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like that in Georgia, too. I raised my youngest up in Tennessee in the mountains. And we went down to Savannah. We lived there for about a year and a half. And he was like, Mom, these woods out here in Georgia is just so much more creepy than Tennessee. I want to go back to Tennessee. I'm like, I feel that, kid. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know, Ronnie, if you're familiar with Jasper, Georgia. I don't know if you've ever been up there.
Yeah.
But we were up there a couple of months ago at, there's an old historic jail, the old historic Jasper jail. And you can be there overnight and do your investigation, but we left at like 3 a.m. And I remember taking the back roads. It's kind of nestled away at the foothills. It's very beautiful. But on the way home, I was taking these back roads, and it's kind of scary because there's no lights on the side of the roads. It's just pitch dark, and it's just you. And so I'm like, oh, I don't want to hit a deer. I don't want to hit a deer. So I'm like paying really good attention to the road, right? Because in my family, when we hunt, we don't catch nothing. It's always, we kill them with our cars. They jump out in front of us, and we kill them with our cars.
Yes.
And not on purpose. Let me just put that out there. It's always just been, they come at us, and so I was very hyper vigilant, trying to watch out for deers, because if you see one come across the road, there's 5 more behind it.
Exactly.
I remember taking a turn, and the biggest bobcat was walking on the side of the road. And I know this isn't anything paranormal, but huge. It was huge and so well defined and pretty. And it did not even care that a car was driving. It was walking like it owned that spot of the road.
Yeah.
And I was like, dear Lord, if anybody was out just walking in the middle of the night and not really worrying about what they were going to come across, that's the type of thing that will eat you.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know that's not paranormal. If you think about all the things that people are saying, well, I heard this in the woods and I heard that and it was scratching, and it's an animal 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10, it's an animal. Yep. And if you don't think it is, trust me, they are there. Just because you don't see them, they're there.
Yeah. Same with the people in the Sasquatch and whatnot out there. Do you see the glowy eyes? Yeah. It's probably a deer or a raccoon. Right.
And that one is strange to me. That if I ever heard like howling, like they say that those howlings are like Sasquatch howls, or the tree knocking, I'd be booking it. I would be running out of those woods so fast. No, thank you. No, thank you. I would rather deal with spirits
yeah,
than a Sasquatch. And I don't even know why. like I would rather deal with a spirit than a Sasquatch.
Some people say that Sasquatches are spirits, that they're another entity or something.
Or an alien, like an alien.
Like an alien type thing, that they can appear and disappear at will, and just different things. I've heard so many different things.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so open to everything. I mean, you can't believe in like the supernatural with goats in the quantum realm and not believe in other things.
Yes.
Right.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I believe in everything too, but I'm still a skeptic. And my mind always wants to logically explain it away. That's just how I roll.
And that's how pareidolia is. It's like we try to make sense out of nonsense.
Yes.
Even when we're not trying to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that, in order to understand what's happening, our brains are constantly trying to look for an explanation. I would love to see a Sasquatch, but they always say that those things are like, they're so big and so huge and scary.
Well, if they were so big and so huge, wouldn't you think that more people would see them?
Yeah, and we don't have no bones. We don't have any leftover artifacts from them.
Right. And every picture you get is almost like a paranormal of a ghost. It's always blurry and
green.
So, I mean, I'm not saying there ain't one out there, but I just would think that there would be a family of these great big creatures around.
Well, they'd have to be around so long without going unnoticed. And with all of our technology, like infrared and thermal imaging, you'd think that we would be able to capture something.
Yes. I mean,
like legit evidence. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, hunters out there that go out in the woods with their infrared, monocles or whatever they call them. They're out there and they pick up these bears. They pick up brown bears and grizzly bears. And I look at those pictures and I'm like, well, the videos, and I'm like, see, that you should be able to catch Bigfoot like this.
Yes.
And it's a nice, clear, greenish color because it's night vision, but it's perfectly clear and you can tell exactly what it is. I mean, if there is a Bigfoot that big, I don't think you're going to be a threat to that thing at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So why would it have to run and hide from you?
Mm-hmm.
Unless it does have something to do with alien hybrid type of thing. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not real conversed in this whole, there's an entire group dedicated that the foundation does for cryptids and UFOs and Sasquatch and stuff like that. I am not knowledgeable enough to say what it could be or why it's this or why it's that or what it is and when this happens. I am just I follow, those people, the Sasquatch hunters on TV. And so that's my extent. That's the extent of my knowledge about that. I just know if I was in the woods and some big, huge Sasquatch showed up, I'd be going the other direction.
That's right.
I just remembered I have an appointment. I gotta go.
And I think it's very interesting, cryptids. I like the thought of cryptids, but, I'm also, you're going to have to really show me some proof.
Yes.
For me to start thinking.
We're not just blind believers.
Right.
For sure.
And there's too much of that.
Now, and for cryptids, I think there's no evidence of cryptids because I think it has a spiritual relevance to it. A lot of the people that have seen things that they have called cryptids have had some type of supernatural or spiritual encounter. And that was their perception of what that experience was.
Yes.
So I think that in itself is pretty interesting as well.
Yes.
That I find. And the latest one, and you'll find that if you hear about one particular cryptid, it suddenly kind of multiplies into other states and other clients. We had one person that actually earlier in the year that mentioned a spider demon. That's the only way. It wasn't a demon, but that's just how it was described.
Right.
Yeah.
spider looking thing. And we had never heard of that before, but we did on that one particular case. And then again, 2 weeks later, somebody else in a different part of the country had a similar experience and kind of described the same spider there. And now we're like, whoa, where is this coming from? And how are these people having similar experience with this because we don't know what it is. And then, you kind of get to think about Batman. There's a lot of people that see this shadow type looking entity with a hat. It's usually got red eyes, all over the place. Now I know I'm not sure about partial, but it seemed like when there's one actually gives their entity that they've had experience with a name, like spider demon, it kind of takes on a life of its own, and other people start to say the same thing and have similar experiences.
Yes, that's a thought form type.
And if those people don't have any type of connection to each other, where is that coming from? They don't have any physical connection. They are not friends. They are not relatives. They have no no idea who this other person is in 5 states away, but they're describing something similar.
Yes.
Which I find pretty interesting.
Yes. And that's true. And, it's just like when we get back to being skeptical.
Hello?
I mean, we got to be skeptical to a point. Yeah. Because we're out there trying to find the truth. And,
yes.
and I talked to Kenny, and I thought Kenny was awesome. If people would talk to Kenny and then be open-minded about it, and then when they were done, come to a consensus of, hey, I need to be looking at things not through a telescope, but both eyes. I need to be able to see the whole picture. And I think that people would, well, we'll never have that, but I think people would understand a little bit more, because it's just like we were saying about the mouse in the wall, or, some people will say, no, Todd, that's going to be demonic, when we know for a fact what it is. So I think people, the whole belief system is just, it's weird.
Yeah. And I think, and I know if I was on the receiving end of Mr. Biddle's commentary, I would probably quit my job. Nobody ever wants to be picked apart. Right. Mm-hmm. But I do think you need to have a healthy level of skepticism.
Yes, for sure.
Legitimate field. Just because of the way it is right now. Just because of what's out there right now, passing off videos and things like that as evidence, even though it's clearly not. Mr. Biddle brings a unique perspective because, one, he does not believe in ghosts. I've heard him say he does not believe in ghosts. So he's always going to be looking for what it could be. It could be this too. You're saying it's an orb, but this is what it could be based on, the weather conditions, the temperature. There's so many things that Mr. Biddle would be thinking of, going through his thought process that I probably would not be at the time. And he's actually given me some good pieces of information going forward that I didn't think of. So I think the more people that really want to see this field succeed in a way where we're taken more credible, because I don't think people see this field as very credible at all. There might be few of us that people look to. I just don't think that we're at the point where the entire field is the same page.
Right.
And I'm not going to go into there's drama for days in our drama for days. it kind of takes from the real reason why we're all here, and that's to find answers, to get something on paper, on video, that we cannot explain, to say, yeah, this is paranormal. Like, I capture this entity, this energy. I just don't think we're there yet.
Steph, we're breaking up a little bit here. We're breaking up. We're getting some
interference.
Or is it a demon? I don't know.
We're usually in that Mercury retrograde storm, babe.
That's right. Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, probably got some wind moving in here too.
Yep, same here.
But everything that you were saying, you're absolutely right. But how do we do it? Because each person investigates differently. I mean, there can't be like a set way of investigating, because that just doesn't work. But it does go back to a true paranormal investigator, such as yourself, myself, Ronnie. We need to try to show people how meters work. How does a REM pod work? How does this work? Yeah. Because they're not for finding ghosts.
They're really not. There is no one piece of equipment that is made that is meant to capture an entity or a ghost.
That's correct.
Those things, what they do is they measure changes in the environment.
Yes. So
with those, we can see if there's a pattern, if one thing changes or doesn't change. But I think in regards to equipment, my go-to pieces are always going to be a digital recorder and a video camera. And it has to have a really good microphone. It's got to have some night vision so that you don't have to worry about not seeing things when the lights go out.
Yes.
I don't have a REM pod. I don't have those, but there are members on my team that have several. And those things can be tricky too.
Sure.
A lot of the times you have to be very careful with them because your other equipment will set them off.
Yes.
And so I think we need to have a standard of how we investigate a place. And it's like, for example, you need to have at least 2 cameras in each room to gather a 360 perspective. And then Mr. Biddle suggested having one at the door too.
Absolutely.
To see, and that's something I never thought of either. Having something at the door just had, an added layer of visual.
Yes.
Because, and for me, I tend to hum when I'm nervous, or I'll sing. Especially if I've been in a place that was like kind of sketchy and scared me a little. When we're breaking down or setting up, I will like hum and sing out of nervousness. And so I have to train myself not to do that. And we just need to have, I don't know. You're right. There is no standard that you can have, but we can have guidelines.
Yes.
Yes.
We can have guidelines to follow. And I think for one, and a lot of people are going to come at me, and I'm sorry, this is just my honest experience. The apps, the necrophonics, the necrophonic apps, the apps that people download on their phone, get rid of those. You cannot use those on a residential investigation. They're entertainment only.
Yes.
And the fact that you run them on your phone while you're trying to investigate, just the interference of your phone can make that produce a false positive. A lot of people hate that when I say that, but the apps to me, they're garbage. They're fun if you just want to cut up, if you're a teenager and you're at a party and you want something to do, and that's fine. But as far as like taking that to a person's home who's having issues, and you whip out your phone and you start using this app to communicate with spirits, which I think if you're investigating someone's home, you really shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Yeah,
you should be there to capture data and baseline readings.
Yes.
And also, and the K2 meter, it's great for pay and play, to play venues. If you're out there just having fun, you want to support a local business and that's what they're doing, that's great too. But I would not ever use a K2 when I'm working with a client, trying to remedy or figure out what's going on in their home. Those things are just absolutely not for that purpose.
Exactly. And you'll see it all over YouTube. They're investigating, and what's the one thing they have in their hand? The K2.
The K2.
And that's because it's sensitive and it picks up absolutely everything. And they are, most of these people are from they watch these old shows that I won't name, and they see them doing it and they mimic it and say, well, if this light goes off, that means we have a ghost.
Yeah, but for me, you can't put a value on a color. Well, it went from green to red. Well, what does that mean? What were you standing next to? Did you do baselines? Did you go through with an EMF meter? Did you see if maybe they had an appliance that was giving off an unusually high amount of EMF? Because if they do, that can attribute to their experiences.
Absolutely.
Especially if they've got one of those dinosaur old 1980 alarm clocks. Those things are notorious for giving off high EMF.
Oh, yeah. Old furnaces, the same way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we had one person who said, and this is aside from people who have psychic gifts or mediumship abilities, but if somebody showed up to your house to do an investigation and they pull out a K2 or an SLS, and based on those two items, they say you have something demonic and start whipping out the holy water and burning sage, I would be very, very scared. I would be worried for you, because either one of those is not a reliable or acceptable form of equipment to even detect anything, especially something demonic. I mean, and that's just everybody always says, oh, it's a demon. I've got a demon in my house. I've got scratches. I hear scratches. It's a demon. I wake up at 3 a.m. And whenever I hear people saying things like that, I'm like, oh, you've been watching the TV shows.
Exactly.
Those are the telltale signs. And you have to kind of re-educate them.
Yes.
Based on their belief system, because everybody's belief system is different.
Yep.
It's so funny. I was watching, I won't say their name, but it's a YouTube group. They've been in the news lately. Let's just say that. And they were holding a tri-field meter, and they're walking around, and they're like, "Look, the tri-field meter went off here, here, and here." I'm like, "But you're holding it,
Right?
You're not supposed to be holding a tri-field meter. It's supposed to be stationary on a level surface with no interference with it. You're not supposed to be touching it." But they've seen, people like those people we won't name, walking around with the tri-field, watching it go off and make noise. That's an incorrect way to use that piece of device. I'm sorry. But, or they'll have like 5 different devices all lined up or piled up onto each other. That's not how it's done either. I mean, I think we need to have, I see that you're going to put like was it Paranormal Education 101?
Yes.
Yes.
See, that would be great. We need more resources like that.
Yes.
I mean, I can say all day long, you're not supposed to hold your tri-field meter in your hand, but I think actually explaining why you shouldn't hold it in your hand is what's going to turn people around to doing things right.
Yes. And that's going to be a collaborative thing. I was going to do it on my own, but then I'm like, you know what? Everybody does things different. Even though they can be the same, it's good. You're going to get the same results, but everything, you know what I mean? If I do it this way and you do it this way, even though we're going to get the same results. So I'm thinking about doing a collaborative thing. Why? You want to do something?
Well, no, I just happened to see your post about it. And I know there's a few other people who like to put out paranormal education. But it doesn't really dive into like paranormal investigating techniques or the do's and don'ts for equipment, or, if you're trying to capture or experiment. They really don't cover that. It's usually just kind of vague. It's a very broad topic. So depending on what you're looking to do, if it has anything to do with like investigating, I would most definitely love to help you out there. Because that's one thing that I think, I mean, I'm not tooting my own horn, but it's one thing I try to do very well. And, people like you and me, Ronnie, Mr. Biddle, Lloyd Auerbach, he's another one of my mentors that I refer to often, ask questions. The more that we can get the news out there of this is the proper way and this is not proper, because I think our field will get better.
Yes. And that is what my goal is to do. Basically, I want to take the person, from the why do you want to be an investigator, and then walk you through the entire thing. So that when you come out of these, because you can't have it all in one day. You gotta do it in parts. Because I think that people need to know how to research something. That's important. That's extremely important. The researching, knowing how to, what the millimeter does, what the K2 meter does, what, all these different things do, and how you use it and how you do it correctly. Because there's too much that is now just frivolous. It has become a likes, follows, and ratings. Whoever can put out the best nonsense is what I say, pretty much.
Oh, I know.
Because that is what they're conditioned for. Back in my time, it was, a reel-to-reel tape player, because that's how far back I go. So reel-to-reel tape player, with a microphone, and I only knew about reel-to-reels because my brother played guitar. So it was one of those things where back then you had to research how to do it, because there wasn't just people you could go to do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like the psychological aspects of being a paranormal investigator, not for you, but for a residential client or a business client. Because if you go to a residential client and you tell them that they have demons, what is that going to do to them psychologically?
Right.
Exactly. Or a portal.
Yes.
That's one of the other big ones. Oh, you have a portal.
Yes.
But then they don't do anything. And I think that word is just kind of thrown around unnecessarily a lot of the times too. For if they don't have something they can give to the client to explain what they're happening, they're going to throw out a demon, or they're going to throw out a portal.
Yep.
Yes.
But then they're not really going to help the client. I had one client over the weekend I was talking to, and she had been told that she had a portal. And I said, well, what did they do? Did they close it? And she said, well, they did something and they put salt in the windows. I said, well, did they tell you what the salt was for? Did they tell you how you could make the salt? Did they tell you what the purpose of the salt was? And she said, no, they left me a piece of paper and that was it. And usually when we see clients like her and she's already reached out to a paranormal team, that's usually what happens. Either one, they don't help. They don't know how to help, so they don't help. Or they've told them that they've had something like a jinn or a shapeshifter and that they need to go, find somebody else who is more experienced in that. And if you've got somebody who's got a mental illness or is on medication, a lot of times we end up being counselors for our clients.
Exactly.
Yes.
We have to make sure that they're in a very good mental state. We have to make sure that they're healthy. And if you tell somebody who has a schizophrenic ideology that they've got something like a demon or a shapeshifter, and then you leave them high and dry like that, they've now got that ideology and they're going to take it and it's going to transform into something else.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
And it's so hard to re-educate somebody like that because one, you have to make sure that they're seeing a therapist or their doctor. Have they stopped taking their medication? Are they still on it? What are they taking? Because all of those things can also create an ideology for the paranormal. we've got one client that we've been observing for a little over a year that she approached us for help, who has had some mental health issues in the past and refused to do what we asked her to do. So our very main thing is, we need to know that you've been to a doctor. If you're telling us that you're experiencing things, especially, hearing voices or seeing things, we want to make sure that you've got all your mental faculties being checked out.
Yeah.
We never, ever want to come in and leave a client in more harm than when we found them.
Absolutely.
So if we believe, and this is just not me, I'm not a medical professional, but we do have medical professionals that do assessments that kind of guide us to where we need to go with this client. If they say, well, we need to get something from the doctor. We need to know, are they going regularly? Are they taking their medication? Because we never, ever want to come in and do something that could harm them or hurt their health. And there are people that we've tried to help who have similar situations like that. And we see them now on social media, on TikTok, and they're saying that, there are things happening to them that they need help. And so you see everybody trying to pitch in and help people like this one that we've been watching. And it's the same story over and over again. Oh, well, I did this, but they told me it was this. And then they told me it was this. And another team came in and did this. And
yes.
And I just feel really bad for people like that. They will never be satisfied, ever.
No.
And I think this one person that I'm thinking of while I tell the story is, it's now we need the Vatican to come over here and give me an exorcism. It's evolved into that is the only thing that's going to help me, because this person is just not in their right mind.
Right.
And they've been told so many crazy, outlandish things by people everywhere that they're convinced that that's the only thing that's going to happen, help them.
And that's, I'm sure that I have especially went in and did cleanup for another group that had no idea what they were doing, went in there, thought forming stuff. And it's just like, now you got to go in, tell them what really is going on, how to fix that. The psychological aspects that you can really mess with somebody that's a real thing. And people don't think about that. They just want that thrill.
Yep.
It really is. And a lot of times we have clients that walk away from us because they've been told so many things, and now they are so sure that it's malevolent or it's super bad. And that when we say, well, not really. Now, I'm not saying that most of the time these people are wrong. You might have one that did try to help, that did try to give them the correct information. Either they're not experienced or, it's not a once and done kind of thing, right? Sometimes lifestyle changes have to be made. You can't keep living in the same lifestyle and expect things to get better if you're still drinking or if you're still doing drugs, if you're, got that low vibrational mindset. Those things have to change if you want more positivity into your life. A lot of the times when we approach our clients, we do that. It's an approach just like that. We need to let the sunlight in. We need to, get you happy and thinking positive.
Yes.
You need to be eating and getting exercise. Get outside, get some fresh air, get some sun. Bring back joy to your life. Family game night. Watch comedies. And people might think that those things are minute or frivolous, like they don't really do anything, but they actually help wonders. It's one step in a positive direction. If you can take one step, then you're going to take another and then another. And eventually you've gotten to a place where you're thinking positively, your vibration is so high and bright, and your aura is looking good, and you're thinking happy thoughts, and that you're not feeding into the negativity of whatever was there. It could have been residual. You could have just been feeding residual gunk. You've cleaned it out. You've got positive energy around you. Sometimes it's just as easy as that. clean out the garage and get rid of that clutter. Get rid of all those old boxes that are just sitting there that, just taking up space. Sometimes those small changes are enough to help people, but you get that one client who gets stuck on, nope, it's a skinwalker, it's a shapeshifter, right. And you just can't convince them otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of them things. It's, I don't know. It's like, where do you go? What do you do? Because there's so much out there now. These paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, whatever you want to call them, they've popped up out of the woodwork. There's so many now that's like they're overrunning each other, and it's like now you have to try to read through all the BS to find yourself a good, honest, legit paranormal investigator. I mean, because my take is this, and I'm always going to be like this. It doesn't make you a paranormal investigator to go to Waverly Hills. It doesn't make you a paranormal investigator to go to Pennhurst. It does not make you a paranormal investigator. That can help, that can get you in, okay, well, this is, some of the stories, and take your K2 meter with you. And, but that isn't what makes you a paranormal investigator.
I agree. I haven't even been to most of those places. There are a few places here locally in Georgia that we go to, and I have been to more than once, only because we're there by ourselves. We're not there with other people, people from the public.
Yeah.
That if we wanted to experiment with a theory or a hypothesis, we could. But those places, I don't have a desire to go to them. I know other people's motivations are different, and that's fine. I'm not knocking them or putting them down at all. But just because you're right, just because you've gone there and you've been in that one particular location and you've gotten some evidence, whatever that may be, does not mean that you can help people.
Right. And what evidence could you possibly get, though, at Waverly or Pennhurst? Because you're there with a bunch of other people, so that sound's going to travel. Remember, we talked about how sound travels through different things. So, I mean, really anything that you get, even if it's a photograph, an EVP, it's all going to be just junk. It's going to be for you to take and learn how to listen to that piece of audio and understand how you do that, how you listen to it, put it in reverse, do whatever you want to do. But when it comes down to it, it's not really. It's just a pay-to-play place, and it's not like you're not learning anything specific. It's not like you go to a Paracon and you hear, speakers up there and they're publicly speaking and they're trying to help and answer questions. This is hey, let's get my friends and we're going to go to this place and we're going to do a mock paranormal investigation.
And I think that's where a lot of people get I call it the bug, the paranormal bug, because they do places like that and they enjoy it so much. They're like, oh, I could do this all the time now. Not really, looking deeper into, experiences and what's out there. And then we see that all the time with clients that say, oh, well, somebody came here and they walked around, they pulled out, their tablet and used one of those apps. They said this and then they left, so those type of teams should never, ever be doing residential investigations, in my opinion. Now, they may feel otherwise, and that's okay, that they're well entitled to their opinion on that. But if you have not helped a client, if you've literally just gone in there, done a few things, walked around, and then left them high and dry, and here they are calling other teams 6 months later. Now, there are people that do that who have other problems. I'm not talking about those people, but real good folk who are actually having legitimate experiences, who were not helped with the previous team. We've actually kind kind of looked into some of those teams, I will ask what's their name, what's their phone number, what did they do when they came in, and you'd be amazed at some of the teams that I have heard of, because you see them and you're like, oh, they look like they're a good team. They seem to be doing things okay. But then you go and you actually vet them and check them out. And you're like, I cannot believe they told that client she had that type of presence in her home, showed her these photographs, and there's one that I'm thinking of right now at the top. I won't call them out because I just don't want to do that. But they showed a client photographs that had these like black blobs kind of moving in all sorts of different directions. And she's like, yeah, they showed me this photo. They told me I had a malevolent presence. They tried to help me. I've been to several deliverance ministers, and she was paying at least $600 a pop for this one particular deliverance minister.
Wow.
And he's pretty prominent. I won't call him out either, but he's well known in our field. And she had gone to visit him like 6 times.
Good.
When I go to vet this previous paranormal team, when I go to their social media to vet them, they've got similar type photos that they have passed off as paranormal at other places, other venues, around other people. They've actually posted them to their social media. It's the same type of anomaly that they showed my client. And I'm like, there is no way that these people are so in tuned or so experienced that they are capturing the same type of anomaly all over the place.
Right.
It has to be, a device fault, a faulty device, a failure of their camera somehow. Because I would hate to think that they were purposefully making this anomaly happen. But I won't go there. And I feel bad for her. And, it took quite a long time to get this one particular client to kind of realize that, okay, yeah, maybe that wasn't the right course of action. Maybe, and her husband had to say, he was like, I had to hide the credit card from her because she kept taking it and going to see this deliverance minister. It's just so expensive. And people's perception of things is not always as they appear, but it's like you said earlier, they're so ingrained in their ideology of what's going on that it's so hard to get them to think about something else. And by that time, this person, she's probably spent a good $2,000.
Yeah, so he's making bank. He's doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought that you couldn't make money in a fringe science,
Right.
We've never charged a dime, you know what I mean?
No, I haven't either. We've never charged a cent. But this person is, taking advantage of the community and charging for these deliverance sessions. Mm-hmm. And one thing that and this should always scare people, if you go to a community leader like that and they're charging you money, and you go with like your spouse or your significant other, and they say to that, your partner, please wait out in the waiting room, don't come in, that should be a huge red flag for you.
Oh, yes.
Run.
Yep.
Run and run far and fast. Because who knows what's going on in that room? Who knows what is being done to that person? They could have been hypnotized or, molested, God forbid. But you just don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry. I tend to ramble.
That is okay. Wow. We covered a lot of stuff.
Yes, we did.
And a lot of time.
Oh, wow.
So, man, it was great talking to you. And we talked to you just about everything. And,
good.
And it was fun. I had a good time. Ronnie, she had a good time. And, we'll definitely have to get you back on and talk some more and, learn some more about, the paranormal here.
Yeah.
Oh, I enjoyed it too.
It was wonderful meeting you too and talking to you. So.
Oh, it was wonderful meeting you too. I know we're all connected on Facebook, but it's actually really nice when you can conversate with people and relate and kind of
like-minded people
share stories.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me. It was a real good evening, real fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on with us, and we're definitely going to have to contact you again. It was a very good time. All right. Thanks, Stephanie.
All right.
You have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in with us tonight, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content from Paranormal Podcast is made available. If you believe you have something paranormal happening in your home or business, or you believe you may have witnessed a UFO or UAP, please send us your story, your photos, videos, questions, suggestions, and your comments to paranormallypodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit us at www.paranormallypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. Hey, thanks again for watching and listening, and I hope that you tune in for next week's episode of Paranomaly. Hey, a word of caution. Paranormal Podcast and its affiliates or hosts do not verify or check the validity of any person, team, or its members. Paranormal Podcast highly advises that you proceed with caution when contacting any person or team before allowing them and having them into your home or business. A legit paranormal research and investigation team will never charge you a fee to investigate your home or business. They do, however, accept donations to help further the research and investigations if you so choose to do so. All right, thanks everybody.